Well, hello, friends. It is good to gather with you today at the end of November. I'm Pastor Lorri Landon from First UMC in Kirksville. These past 8 weeks, we've been exploring the wisdom that Jesus offers in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, and we've been looking at the way that the Beatitudes invite us into God's way of kingdom life, into the practices and truths that differ from what we normally encounter. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are mistreated for doing good, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, as we look at the final beatitude today, it's one that invites us into Jesus' way of radical love, into the hope that allowed him to live fearlessly. Blessed are you when people insult you, mistreat you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they mistreated the prophets who were before you. Have you felt fear recently? Many of us have, in some way, shape, or form. And fear can often become a driving part of our lives that leads us into all sorts of thoughts and behaviors that make no rational sense if we could take a step back from that fear. Some people would say that fear is one of the primary motivators of human behavior. It makes us susceptible to the claims of people who say, well, we won't have to fear anymore if we just buy their products or do exactly what they say, because they'll make trouble disappear. Jesus makes a different claim when he asks people to follow. Now, make no mistake, there were lots of folks in the day of Jesus who also made claims that if people would follow them, there would be no more trouble. Everything would work out. Jesus is different. He makes no promises that life will suddenly be prosperous and all trouble and suffering will end. Instead, in this beatitude, he actually suggests that difficulties may come because of following him. Through both his words and his actions, Jesus shows us a way that is more powerful than fear. That's in fact the opposite of fear. The way of radical love. This love invites us to be courageous no matter what troubles we face, because we are first loved by God, who is the very source of love. Now, practicing this radical love that Jesus modeled is not easy. Choosing courageous acts and words when we're scared doesn't come naturally. And Jesus taught his disciples this counterintuitive paradox that sometimes, in order to save your life, you must lose it. And that holding too tightly may keep us from truly experiencing the full life that comes through Christ. This incredible truth that Jesus embodied was that death is not the end. The grave is not the final destination, because in Christ there is life eternal that has no end. And so when we find ourselves clinging tightly, trying to make everything in our lives here and now perfect, when we try to avoid all the trouble, well, this invitation to radical love is to put things in perspective and die to that part of ourselves that thinks that what happens right now is what truly matters. Now, especially in a week where there are sometimes expectations that our celebrations might be a Norman Rockwell holiday, this might be good to remember, because sometimes things hit us heavier than they probably should in the grand scheme of things. So the dog pulled the turkey off the counter. Or maybe the gravy was too salty for everyone to eat, and relatives fought like cats and dogs, and someone's flight was canceled, and we couldn't get together and gather the way we wanted. Sure, those things hurt. They make us sad. They might make us embarrassed, maybe even angry. But there's something bigger. And even though ads try to convince us that the most important thing we can do in this time of year is to make sure our holiday celebrations are perfect, Jesus invites us to remember that there is something much more important than whether our holiday looked like a Norman Rockwell card and everything was in place and the decorations all perfectly matched. He invites us to remember what is truly important eternally. And so as we move into this season of peace, hope, love, and joy, this beatitude invites us. It reminds us that true good is much more than a surface beautiful celebration or keeping silent to keep the peace. Radical love may require us to speak out and rock the boat on behalf of those who can't speak. It may lead us to take a stand for those who suffer no matter the cost. Radical love may mean putting our own comfort aside. Maybe it means giving up our scoop of our favorite stuffing so that someone else can have some. And this beatitude invites us to move from fear to courage. Blessed are you when people mistreat you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad. So how is it with your soul today, this day after Thanksgiving? No matter what the week has brought, no matter what joys have come or what challenges we've faced, we can remember we don't walk alone. God is with us and is at work within us. Because each day we have a choice. We can live by our first instincts, the anxiety, denial, competition, apathy, contempt, deception, division, anger, and fear. Or we can follow Jesus into the ways of the Beatitudes. My prayer for us is that we would learn to live with open hands, to mourn what is broken, to serve with self-respect, to use our power for good, to look with compassion, to walk in honesty, to reach past differences, to be willing to suffer for love, and to live fearlessly, following the way of the one who came in radical love for the sake of the world. So go in peace, friends. Enjoy the rest of this weekend, and I'll see you next week as Advent begins. Take care.